The leaked contact sheet of a secret billionaires club has just blown the lid off the most powerful private society you have never heard of. A hacker known as Maya, the same individual who exposed the no-fly list back in 2019, has released a document containing the names of 113 alleged members of a secret organization called Dialogue. And the people on this list read like a who is who of the global ruling class. We are talking about Elon Musk, the world's first trillionaire; Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube; Sarah Bond, the president of Xbox, a division of Microsoft; Ted Cruz, a United States senator; Dan Driscoll, the secretary of the United States Army; Jared Kushner, former presidential advisor and son-in-law of Donald Trump; Tulsi Gabbard, who later became the director of national intelligence; Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google; Greg Brockman, former president of OpenAI; Brian Johnson, the biohacking billionaire; Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor. And these are just the 113 names that were leaked. The full scope of this organization is almost certainly much larger. But what exactly is Dialogue, and why should every working class person care about a group of rich people having secret meetings behind closed doors? The answer is simple. This is the class war made visible. Dialogue is not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy of the ruling class to coordinate their domination over the rest of us, away from public scrutiny, away from media accountability, and away from democratic oversight. And the single most important name at the center of it all is Peter Thiel. To understand why this matters, we have to understand how the ruling class actually governs in a capitalist society. It is not through elections alone. It is not through legislation alone. It is through a dense network of overlapping institutions, both public and private, that allow the economic elite to coordinate their political agenda without ever having to answer to voters. Organizations like the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum at Davos, the Bohemian Grove, the Trilateral Commission, and now Dialogue all serve the same basic function. They provide a space where the people who actually run things can meet informally, build relationships, align their interests, and hash out disagreements without the messiness of democratic accountability. The existence of these organizations is not a secret. The Bilderberg meetings are announced publicly. The World Economic Forum is covered by the media, but what happens inside them is strictly off the record. There are no minutes, no transcripts, no recordings. Participants are free to speak candidly without fear that their words will end up on the front page of a newspaper. This is not an accident. It is a structural feature of class rule in capitalist democracies. The formal democratic process handles the surface-level decisions, the ones that affect daily life in visible ways. The informal networks handle the deep structural decisions, the ones that determine the direction of the economy, the conduct of foreign policy, and the boundaries of acceptable political debate. Dialogue is simply the latest version of this phenomenon, but it is an unusually revealing one because the membership list actually got leaked. Peter Thiel is not just any billionaire. He is the co-founder of PayPal, an early investor in Facebook, and the founder of Palantir Technologies, one of the most powerful and dangerous surveillance companies on the planet. Palantir builds data analysis software used by governments, intelligence agencies, police departments, and corporations to track, profile, and surveil millions of people. The company was originally funded by the CIA's venture capital arm, InQtel, which means the United States intelligence community was directly involved in creating the infrastructure that Peter Thiel now uses to monitor the world. If you have ever heard about predictive policing, mass metadata collection, or immigration enforcement algorithms, Palantir is almost certainly involved. The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, uses Palantir to track and target undocumented immigrants for deportation. The Los Angeles Police Department uses Palantir to generate lists of people they consider likely to commit crimes before any crime has actually occurred. This practice, known as predictive policing, has been widely criticized by civil liberties organizations for its racial bias and its tendency to reinforce patterns of over-policing in minority communities. The United States military uses Palantir to coordinate drone strikes, identify targets, and analyze intelligence data. The National Security Agency uses Palantir for mass surveillance programs that collect the communications data of millions of Americans and foreigners alike. And Peter Thiel, the man at the helm of this surveillance empire, is also the co-founder of Dialogue, the secret society whose membership list has now been exposed. The man who wants to know everything about you does not want you to know anything about him. That is the central contradiction of the entire ruling class. They demand total transparency from ordinary people while maintaining total opacity for themselves. When you log into any major website today, you are bombarded with identity verification requests, cookie consent banners, and data collection notices. Governments around the world are pushing digital ID systems, biometric databases, and centralized surveillance infrastructure. In the name of national security, fighting terrorism, and preventing fraud, our every move is tracked, logged, and analyzed. But when a journalist or a hacker tries to peek behind the curtain at the billionaires and politicians who are building this surveillance world, suddenly there are privacy concerns. Suddenly, off the record means something sacred. The members of Dialogue do not want you to know who was in the room when decisions about your life were made behind closed doors. And Peter Thiel has been directly involved in building the infrastructure that makes that surveillance possible. His companies stand to profit enormously from every expansion of state surveillance power. When governments mandate digital IDs, Palantir gets contracts to build the databases. When corporations demand biometric verification, companies like Palantir are there to provide the technology. The surveillance state is not an accident. It is a business model. And the people who profit from it are the same people who meet in secret to coordinate their next moves. Let us look at what Dialogue actually is in more detail. According to its own website, Dialogue is a private, invitation-only society founded by Peter Thiel and Orin Hoffman. Orin Hoffman is the CEO of SafeGraph, a company that collects and sells location data from millions of smartphones. SafeGraph was acquired by a company called Neuster, which is itself a major player in the data brokerage industry. Between the two founders of Dialogue, you have Palantir, which builds mass surveillance software for governments, and SafeGraph, which collects location data from ordinary people through their mobile devices. Together, they represent the complete package of the surveillance state. And this is not an abstract concern. Palantir's technology has been used in some of the most aggressive immigration enforcement operations in recent American history. When the Trump administration carried out workplace raids and family separation policies, Palantir software was there, analyzing data, identifying targets, and streamlining the deportation machinery. When the Biden administration continued many of the same immigration enforcement policies, Palantir's contracts remained in place. The surveillance state is bipartisan. It serves whichever party is in power equally well because it is not about ideology. It is about control. And the people who build and profit from it are the same people who meet in secret societies like Dialogue. Dialogue compares itself to the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group. These are the infamous invitation-only gatherings where the world's most powerful people meet off the record to discuss global affairs without any public accountability. The Bilderberg Group has been the subject of conspiracy theories for decades, but the reality is far simpler and far more damning than any conspiracy theory. These groups exist because the ruling class needs a space to coordinate. They cannot simply walk into a government building and announce their plans. That would be too visible, too accountable. Instead, they meet in private resorts, in exclusive clubs, in invitation-only retreats, where they can speak freely without worrying about journalists, voters, or the general public finding out what they are actually discussing. Dialogue was founded explicitly to provide this kind of off-the-record forum for the world's most powerful people. According to the reporting from Wired and Axios, Dialogue held regular conferences and retreats at exclusive locations. The leaked documents show that Dialogue hosted sessions with titles like Money Does Buy Happiness, Bring Back Nuclear, Navigating World War III, Battlefield Technologies, and How Is Your Sex Life? These are the people who hold the fate of millions in their hands, and they are discussing nuclear Armageddon and personal sex lives in the same breath, in a secret club that costs more than $16,000 per ticket to attend. The registration fee alone was enough to keep the average working person out. For context, $16,000 is more than the monthly income of a median American household. It is more than a year's rent for many working families. It is a price tag designed explicitly to exclude ordinary people from even having the chance to be in the room. This is not a think tank. This is not an academic conference where ideas are debated on merit. This is a club for billionaires and their political allies to coordinate without witnesses. And according to reporting from Axios, Dialogue was actively involved in real estate purchases to build a campus in the Washington, D.C. suburbs, putting themselves as close as possible to the seat of government power while maintaining complete secrecy. They wanted to be literally next door to the United States government while operating entirely off the record. The leaked list of 113 members reveals the full scope of this network, and it is worth taking a moment to understand who is in this room together. You have Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, and X, formerly known as Twitter, and the world's first trillionaire. Musk alone controls multiple critical infrastructure systems that millions of people depend on every day. You have Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, the largest video platform on earth with over 2 billion monthly active users, which means he and his executives control what millions of people see and do not see every single day. You have Sarah Bond, the president of Xbox, a division of Microsoft, one of the most powerful technology corporations in human history. You have Ted Cruz, a United States senator from Texas who sits on the Commerce Committee that oversees technology regulation. This means a sitting senator with direct oversight over the tech industry was attending secret meetings with the CEOs of the companies he is supposed to regulate. You have Dan Driscoll, the Secretary of the United States Army under the second Trump administration, meaning a high-ranking military official responsible for the largest ground force in the world was attending secret meetings with tech billionaires and corporate executives. You have Jared Kushner, former senior White House advisor and son-in-law of Donald Trump, who was deeply involved in Middle East policy, criminal justice reform, and pandemic response during his time in government. You have Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman and presidential candidate, who became the director of national intelligence, meaning the person in charge of coordinating all 17 United States intelligence agencies was connected to this secret society. You have Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, another one of the tech giants that has been central to the mass surveillance and data collection apparatus. Under Schmidt's leadership, Google became one of the most data-intensive corporations in existence, collecting information on billions of users worldwide through its search engine, its advertising network, its email service, its mapping software, and its mobile operating system. You have Greg Brockman, the former president of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, and some of the most advanced artificial intelligence systems in the world. You have Brian Johnson, the biohacking billionaire who spends millions of dollars per year trying to reverse his biological age. You have Emad Akur, the founder of a major tech investment firm. You have Scott Cook, the founder of Intuit, the company behind TurboTax and QuickBooks, a company that has been accused of actively lobbying against free and simple tax filing to protect its profits. You have Joe Lonsdale, another co-founder of Palantir, meaning there were multiple Palantir founders in this secret society. You have individuals from the data surveillance industry like the executives of LiveRamp and RA Palif, companies whose entire business model is tracking people across the internet and building detailed profiles of their behavior, their interests, their relationships, and their vulnerabilities. And then there is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor and director, who has been an outspoken critic of certain aspects of technology and social media, and yet was attending the same secret meetings as Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Stop and think about what this means. The same people who control the platforms you use to communicate, the algorithms that shape what you see, the artificial intelligence systems that are replacing jobs, the surveillance technology that tracks your movements, the military that wages war in your name, the intelligence agencies that monitor your communications, and the political system that writes the laws you have to follow are all in the same room together, meeting in secret, without any public record of what they discussed. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a documented fact, confirmed by court documents, by reporting from Wired and Axios, and by the leaked documents themselves. The question is not whether the ruling class coordinates. The question is why we pretend they do not. Think about the implications for democratic governance. The United States Constitution, like the constitutions of most liberal democracies, is built on the idea of separated powers and checks and balances. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces them. The judicial branch interprets them. The media holds all of them accountable. Elections allow the people to choose their representatives. This is the official story of how democracy works. But the existence of organizations like Dialogue reveals that the official story is incomplete at best and fraudulent at worst. When the Secretary of the Army is meeting secretly with the CEO of YouTube and the founder of the largest surveillance company in the world, whose interests are being served. When a sitting senator who oversees technology regulation is attending secret meetings with the CEOs of the companies he regulates, whose interests are being served. When the director of national intelligence is connected to a secret society that includes multiple intelligence contractors, whose interests are being served. The answer is obvious. Their own interests. The interests of the ruling class, not the interests of the working class, not the interests of democracy, not the interests of the general public. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. It is designed to concentrate power in the hands of a small elite while maintaining the appearance of democratic accountability. Organizations like Dialogue are the mechanism through which the elite coordinates its rule outside the view of the democratic process. This is not a group of people who agree on everything. The leaked participant profiles include political leaning categories with options for far left, right, and far right, and the documents include a disclaimer saying these answers will not be shared with any other participants or in the app. But that is exactly the point. Dialogue is not about ideological unity. It is about class unity. These people may disagree on social issues, on electoral politics, on cultural questions, but they all share one fundamental thing. They are members of the ruling class, and they have a collective interest in maintaining the system that keeps them on top. And that is why they meet in secret. Because if the public ever saw the full picture of how coordinated the ruling class actually is, the illusion of democracy would shatter completely. The media and the political system depend on the idea that power is dispersed, that there are checks and balances, that no single group controls too much. But when you see the CEO of YouTube, the Secretary of the Army, the former CEO of Google, the Director of National Intelligence, and the richest man in the world all in the same secret club, the checks and balances narrative becomes very difficult to maintain. Let us talk about the Epstein connection, because this is where the story gets even darker and more revealing about the nature of class power. The leaked documents include an email from Jeffrey Epstein's files, reference number EFTA02563376, which any viewer can look up and verify for themselves through the court records. In this email, Lisa Randall, a theoretical physicist and author who was corresponding with Epstein, forwarded an invitation to Dialogue 2014, a two-day bipartisan retreat. The email explicitly states that Dialogue extended this invitation to Epstein, and that Peter Thiel and Orin Hoffman had designed the agenda around the ideas and needs of the participants. In other words, Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender and human trafficker who was at the center of one of the largest international trafficking networks ever exposed, was personally invited to join this secret society of billionaires. And the email goes on to say that Epstein loved the secret society idea. Peter Thiel loved the secret society idea. They had done a lot of work on the concept, all failed so far. This is documented. This is from the court-released Epstein files, and it connects Dialogue directly to the same network of powerful individuals who were flying on Epstein's planes, visiting his island, and protecting him for decades. The class analysis here is unavoidable. The ruling class is a network, not a collection of isolated individuals. Jeffrey Epstein was not some lone predator operating in a vacuum. He was a financial fixer, a social connector, a gatekeeper who moved between different circles of power. He was useful to powerful people because he could facilitate connections that would otherwise look suspicious or be difficult to arrange. He brought together politicians, intelligence officials, royalty, scientists, and billionaires under one roof. His island was not just a location for criminal activity. It was also a meeting place for the powerful, operating completely outside legal and public scrutiny. And when the Epstein story finally broke in the mainstream mainstream media, it was portrayed as the crimes of one sick individual. But the leaked files show again and again that Epstein was deeply embedded in the same networks as Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and the rest of the Dialogue membership. This is how the ruling class operates. They have inner circles within inner circles. They have public organizations and private ones. Dialogue is one of those private circles. And now we have documented proof that it was connected to the Epstein network. This also raises serious questions about the other names on the Dialogue list. How many of them knew about the Epstein connection? How many of them attended Epstein's events or visited his properties? The answer is that we do not know, and we probably never will, because the ruling class has proven extremely effective at keeping these connections hidden. But the fact that Dialogue explicitly invited Epstein, that Thiel and Epstein were collaborating on the secret society concept, and that Epstein was described as loving the idea, tells us that this secretive network of billionaires was comfortable, including a known sex trafficker in their inner circle. That tells you everything you need to know about the moral character of the ruling class. Now let us talk about the surveillance double standard, because this is where the hypocrisy becomes almost too blatant to believe. Peter Thiel and his companies want to scan your face, track your location, analyze your medical records, monitor your social media activity, read your private messages, log your web browsing, and build a complete digital profile of your entire existence. His goal, as he has stated in multiple public appearances and interviews, is to end the era of anonymity. He believes that people should not be able to hide from the state or from corporations. He has argued that anonymity is a cover for criminal activity and that total transparency would make society safer. He wants a world where every single action you take is logged, recorded, and verifiable by the authorities. But when it comes to his own activities, his own secret meetings, his own private society, suddenly privacy is the most sacred value in the world. The Dialogue website actively blocks access from certain IP addresses and locations. Participants are required to keep everything off the record. The organization has explicitly stated that its inner workings are kept secret from public scrutiny. Peter Thiel has given private lectures about the Antichrist, about building cults, about the dangers of technology, and the coming collapse of civilization, and he has charged tens of thousands of dollars per ticket to attend those lectures. And nobody is allowed to record them. Nobody is allowed to report on them. Journalists who try to investigate Dialogue find their IP addresses blocked and their inquiries stonewalled. The same man who is building the infrastructure to end privacy for the rest of us is the one who needs privacy the most. This is not hypocrisy in any ordinary sense. It is class rule in its purest form. The ruling class has always operated under a double standard. There are rules for the working class, and there are entirely different rules for the billionaires. Surveillance is for you, not for them. Transparency is for you, not for them. Accountability is for you, not for them. And as long as they control the state, the media, the technology platforms, and the financial system, they will keep it that way. The surveillance state is not being built to protect you. It is being built to control you while the people building it remain completely free from any equivalent scrutiny. Now some will argue that Dialogue is just an opportunity for powerful people to have open, honest conversations across political divides without the pressure of public scrutiny. This was essentially the response from Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is the only Dialogue participant who has made any substantive public statement about the leak so far. He said, quote, "I understand why people have questions and are suspicious. Some of the headlines and posts circulating about this are alarming, if not bizarre. I have been to 2 conferences, but I do not know Peter Thiel. I have never met him. I have never spoken with him or his representatives. I have never seen him at an event. At the Dialogue conferences I have been to, there have been a wide variety of people and a wide variety of opinions. Some I have agreed with, some I did not. I cannot speak for every person named in the reporting, but my experience was not of a single ideological gathering. And there is some truth to that. The leaked list does include a range of political leanings. But this response fundamentally misses the point. The problem is not that Dialogue is a single ideological gathering. The problem is that it is a gathering of the most powerful people on earth, meeting in complete secrecy, to discuss matters that affect the entire world. When the CEO of YouTube, the former CEO of Google, the founder of Palantir, the richest man in the world, the Secretary of the United States Army, and the Director of National Intelligence all get together behind closed doors, the fact that they have different opinions on cultural issues is completely irrelevant. They are not debating whether the working class deserves better wages, better healthcare, or safer working conditions. They are discussing how your sex life is and whether to bring back nuclear weapons. They are the class that makes decisions about war, surveillance, economic policy, and technological development, and they are making those decisions without any input from the people who will be affected by them. There is no working class representative in that room. There is no union leader, no tenant organizer, no minimum wage worker, no person of color from a working class community. There are only billionaires, executives, politicians, and military officials. That is not Dialogue. That is class rule. And the fact that it happens behind closed doors is not an accident. It is by design. The secrecy serves a purpose. It prevents the public from understanding how coordinated the ruling class actually is. The Wired investigation into Dialogue also uncovered internal records showing the kinds of discussions that took place. According to sources who spoke with Wired, the off-the-record sessions covered topics ranging from artificial intelligence and biotechnology to geopolitical strategy and military technology. The sessions were designed to allow participants to speak freely without attribution, which means that billionaires and government officials could discuss policy ideas without ever having to take public responsibility for them. An idea discussed at a Dialogue conference could later appear as a government policy or a corporate initiative with no paper trail connecting it back to the secret meeting where it was originally discussed. This is how the ruling class shapes the world without accountability. They do not need to issue direct orders. They do not need to write memos that can be leaked. They just need to create a space where the most powerful people in the world can align their interests informally, and then each of them goes back to their respective institutions and implements the shared vision in their own domain. The tech billionaire goes back to his company and adjusts the platform's algorithms. The politician goes back to Washington and introduces a bill. The military official goes back to the Pentagon and changes procurement priorities. Nobody ever has to admit that they coordinated. Nobody ever has to face consequences for decisions that harm millions of people. It is a system of power that operates through informal networks rather than formal institutions, which makes it extremely difficult to regulate or hold accountable. But perhaps the most important question is what comes next. Now that the membership list has been leaked, now that the world has seen who is connected to the secret society, what will actually change? The honest answer is probably not much, at least not immediately. The media will cover the story for a news cycle or two. Some of the named participants will issue carefully worded statements. Joseph Gordon-Levitt has already made his statement. Others will simply stay silent and wait for the story to blow over. The news cycle will move on to the next scandal, and the ruling class will continue its business as usual. The ruling class is very good at absorbing scandals and neutralizing threats to its legitimacy. They've been doing it for centuries. Every generation produces exposés of elite corruption, secret societies, and behind-the-scenes manipulation, and the system always survives because the system is not built on a reputation of any single individual. The Epstein story was supposed to be the scandal